Ana Monica Yunanin and Dylan Denabnoi, and Secretary Dashota Puita, actually, only Gama Yabian Tanyan Ila Tumbasi Mugad Lachati Tundunan Hashita Dala Frichla, Lacha Midran Muslim Dama Khali Dala. Gant Habian Matkhana Gad Itlan Khikma Arche, Itlan Maria Ben McKenu, and Ila Khadana representative of Federal Parliament, Gatitla Lacha. Audio Itlan Dr. Nicholas Aljilu, Gat Kharta Bthanzim Bud Matvatat Urmi. Merci. Hamna Liha Tneta Surta Biantania Magira, Basi Mbata Sita, Bara Zahman Krishna Gatan, Hodrana, Itan Kudmavina Pulhana Lacha, Al Khoragi Shul, Mali de Gerhamasha Tahrachun, Abira Basi. Only Gama got toda Australian anthems, Merted Australia, Khadaka Shlita Mataha Mercy. In Zamatla Gama Khalaka. Gazmarted altında. Zahmet Laia Dalwana min President Dashota Puita Mugra George Daniel at Trecha Branham Gato.
بنيمتي مغيبة أرخب يبري منو لبنات عزيز ملتا اتلان مديو تريا تيقارا أغمونيكا متخرة مجبوري من قد سبيتش كودنا لشانتينيس سوفتازا قامي لشانتينيس Ladies and gentlemen, this English guest, my fellow Assyrian. Also, I wanted to join Monica, our secretary, to welcome you all to this anniversary. As you know, last year this time, we opened this house. Before I go to my speech about what happened during the last year, I just wanted to appreciate for the people that we work together, in particular our members. They help us, that we took a lot of good steps, not only for VAC, also for our community, the Syrian community in Melbourne. Really, I appreciate our women, shoulder to shoulder with us and with the member. They did a great job. I appreciate, really, give them a big hand. Our baby is 1 year old. So he just started to stand on her feet. During last year, it shows that Bet Urmi is a place of the gathering for the happy days, for the sad days. Like all of us, we have house, we have families, we have friends. We're sharing our sadness and happiness. This is the house for everyone. Bet Urmi shows last year was the house for birthday, 21st birthday. It was the house of gathering with the other organization. It was a house of reconciliation, I would say, between ourselves, between our communities. That's why if you came to the Chag Nisan, which is the celebration of the Assyrian New Year, we have over 2,500 people and everybody were happy. But we have 3 months gathered together here in this house, and we could come with that event. So we carry on with that, not only for the parties, for celebration. We're gathering together to do something about our people in Middle East and what's happening to them. With all the friends all around the world, with the governments. We appreciate the Australian government. Recently, the Labour Party, in the government, they accepted that what happened in Middle East, that was a genocide. So now we're working on it. Not we, I say, we are Assyrian here, all around the world, that this genocide has the consequences. Hopefully, what they did with Kurdish, they do with us. I don't want to take too much of your time. Another thing which I want to mention, last year Bet Urmi was not only birthdays, was a place of the yoga, was a house of Zumba. We have a bingo night. Every fortnight we have a bingo night here. So people, they come together and enjoying each other's companies. And that's all idea. Also, I mention all the time that Our community and our house is for all Assyrian. For all Assyrian. Bet Urmi now, the pictures, celebrations, DVDs, everything is going all around the world. Now everybody knows about Bet Urmi. And we're proud of it. We're all working together, especially here, the government, in particular Labour government, they're helping with us. As a Maria Sitia, when we do something, her office is always open for us, and we appreciate that. So, last year, our secretary Monica, she's secretary of VAC, but I would say for last 3 years that I'm working with her, she is like my daughter, and is secretary of our nation. Everybody like to work with her, and she's doing a great job. I want to say in front of everybody, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I hope we are going to have a wonderful time together today, and we will have such events more and more in future. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I would like to invite Maria to say a few words. I'd also like to mention that she's a very, very dear friend of our community. She's also very helpful whenever we need her, and she assists us in all our programs. So it is quite an honour, actually, and a privilege for us to have her here today, and we always love seeing her lovely face. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Monica. I was thinking of all the flattering things that I'm going to say about you. And I'm sure George has been very kind and very, very good of you to acknowledge the work that your younger members of your community do, because often they don't get acknowledged. They just do the work. I grew up in a similar community. But it's very important for us to make our younger people feel that they have a contribution to make, and that their contribution is valued. That way you keep them closer to the community, because coming back here this year after having been here last year, I must say that I believe it's now finished, the refurbishment. It's a beautiful space for the Assyrian community here in Tullamarine Hall, where a large number of the community live. This is a very beautiful space, and George has outlined the various uses of the venue, and they are very typical of all communities. Celebrations, sporting activities. You didn't mention language classes, George, in education, but I'm sure that happens here as well. You've got a library that you're building in the back there. But I just wanted to congratulate you for this amazing work. I know that this building is the product of your efforts, the result of your efforts. And like all communities, it's basically community members through volunteer work and through contributions, financial contributions, that they make to build a space for them to come together, as George said, and enjoy each other's company and provide support for each other, a company for people, especially those that feel maybe a little bit isolated or alone. We've all got a migrant experience. We've all come here from somewhere else. Some came happily, some came because they had to, they didn't want to. This is the Australian story, and there will be many stories written in here. For my part, I look forward to working with you. Thank you for the kind words that you said, Monica and George, about my office. I'm lucky to have some very good people working for me, and my job as a Member of Parliament is to serve the community, basically. That's what I do, and my office is there to do that, so I'm very happy that we are doing that for you. I'll finish by saying to you all that, like you, I also am waiting in anticipation of the and Joseph, I always have to ask Joseph what the number is, 3,000, 4,000 refugees that will come here into our area, and it makes me feel very, very hopeful that this community in particular is preparing for those people to come here. You're preparing, you're thinking about them, you're making preparations, you'll make them welcome, and we will all be able to work together to help them through a settlement process, knowing that many of them, in fact all of them, will come from a very, very traumatised experience, because what is going on in the region now is traumatic for everyone, let alone the people who are actually experiencing it. And the people who have been forced to leave their homes, refugees, losing family, losing children, is a very traumatic experience, human experience. But I think this community is caring enough and embracing enough to assist, not because we have to, but because we want to, and I think that's what's really important. We all want to help, and we want to make everyone feel welcome. So I look forward to working with you for when that happens, and to also be involved in your community. Thank you for inviting me. I'm sure Nicholas has a wonderful presentation to make and a lot of things to say, and I'm not going to keep you waiting any longer, Nicholas, so thank you very much.
أديب قبل نمشينا كدكتور نيكولاس ألجيلو أتهمزم ككلام بتخاطر تورمي إنا أرجع عن مدخلنا قد أتلان أخلاقاتينا من حكمة قد هنا بهمزم بلشانة إنجلس سمازودا إنا رابا خدية خوب شينا قبل دكتور نيكولاس ألجيلو قد أودي مننا.
بخشان كارك ودخل خاتشارة أخواتي خطواتي بأمتا قلت إقارة لو مرمت طريشة قادي قد هاون لخا قد مقروبا أها مملكة دي يوخن هالبدخ بقدلا خاتي بأمتا مونيكا قد أها مملكة بتهاوي كل بتهاوي بليشانة إنجلس يعني مخليط لي إنا إتلان نخراي لخا إتلان يعني جيلة لخا قد قادية لي شانت إنجلس خدشة بوشها سنعي لبارمهتا. First and foremost, I would like to extend my gratitude to the Victorian Assyrian community, Mr. George Daniel, for their kind invitation for me to be the keynote speaker this afternoon as we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the opening of Urmi House, or Bet Urmi, which is truly an honor and a milestone for the community. Let me start by making it clear that, unfortunately, none of my own ancestors came from Urmi themselves. I guess no one's perfect. However, growing up as an Australian-born Assyrian in the diaspora hub of Fairfield in Sydney, I did come into contact with Iranian Assyrians, most of them Urmijnaye, people from Urmi. They looked exactly like us, but they spoke a little bit differently. They ran their own association and club, Ashur Place, Urut Ashur, and they had some interesting customs and mannerisms that we from Iraq didn't have. They always seemed a little bit more nationalistic, educated, cultured, and urbane than we did. I even remember going to Ashur Place for celebrations of Urmi Day with my family. As I got older and started to read a bit, Urmia became an important part of my imaginations as an Assyrian of my own homeland and my history. But it always remained distant, hidden behind the veil of the inaccessible Islamic Republic of Iran, constantly demonized in the Western media. What made it worse was that any photographs I could find of Urmia were either old black and white ones from a long time ago, or they were badly taken ones, highly discolored from like the 1970s or 80s, making it very hard for me to visualize Urmi as a real place. It was not until I was 18 years old that I finally managed to visit Iran and Urmi. Having secured a job as a photographer in northern Iraq and secretly purchasing a plane ticket with my own savings, I then told my parents, as a matter of fact, that I was going to the Middle East for a few months to visit my homeland. Surprise! You could only imagine how they felt. They were shocked. So, to add to that, the first country in the Middle East that I visited was Iran. And I finally got to fulfill my dream of visiting Urmi. Now, the 2 or 3 weeks that I spent there as an 18-year-old had a profound effect upon me. The Assyrians were dwindling in number, many were choosing to immigrate to the west, selling their homes and properties in their villages, where churches were falling into ruin, cemeteries were being looted of their elegantly carved stones for reuse as building material, and both were constantly being plundered and damaged by treasure hunters. It was a reality check for me, and I realized that something had to be done to preserve it. The hospitality of the local Assyrians and their warmth, the sheer beauty of the region's scenery, and the wealth of history to be found in the villages, churches, cemeteries, all fostered within me a passion to return one day and to do all I could to preserve the endangered heritage of the Assyrians of Urmia. That I did in 2008 and 2009, as I conducted 2 fieldwork expeditions in the region to collect raw data for my doctoral dissertation, which I submitted to the University of Sydney in 2013, graduating with a PhD that year. My topic was the socio-cultural history and heritage of Urmia's Assyrians using inscriptions, largely from tombstones and dedication plaques as my source material. Through my research, I was able to survey 200 different sites in the Urmi region, collecting a total of 2,300 inscriptions dating back to the 9th century AD. My presentation today is a condensed version of 1 or 2 of the chapters from my PhD thesis. So I haven't presented this to anybody yet. You guys are the first ones to see this. And I hope that you will find it interesting. And I hope it's not too long. So, with the first slide, I just wanted to remark that I put that map up there because I want to remind people that Urmi is a part of the Assyrian homeland. A lot of people think that because there's a border between Urmi and Iraq, or Urmi and Hakkari, that they are 2 different areas. No, they're all part of that same continuous area, which is the Assyrian homeland. So, just to give you an idea of where Urmi is, this is a map of Iran, and if you look in the northwestern corner, so in that little corner that's highlighted there, you can see the province of West Azerbaijan. So the city of Urmia is the administrative center of Iran's West Azerbaijan province, which has a population of about 3.5 million people. So it's a little bit like Melbourne, I guess. It is a place founded deep in the mists of the ages, and its name is said to derive from the Akkadian or ancient Assyrian phrase, Urumi, the place of water. Urmia's name also appears in some Syriac or medieval Assyrian manuscripts as Bet Sapra, the morning place, Urmin or Urmi. Under the Pahlavi dynasty, between 1925 and 1979, the city's name was changed to Rezaiye, because it was named after Reza Shah. Its population now numbers about 600,000, with another 300,000 living in the villages and towns of the surrounding countryside, making it the 10th most populous city in all of Iran. The greater Urmia region also comprises of a few other counties, including Salamas to the north, and to the south, Oshnaviyeh and Naqadeh, so Suldus, and then further south there's Piranshar and Mahabad. Now, the Urmi region is one of the most diverse in Iran in terms of ethnicity, language, and religion. So it's also a little bit like the northern suburbs of Melbourne, I guess. Its current ethnic composition consists largely of Turkish-speaking Shiite Azeris, about 800,000 people, and Sunni Kurds, about 700,000 people. Many of the Azeris are originally from the Afshar tribe, which immigrated from the Iranian-Afghan border region and is known to have first settled in the Urmia plain after it was captured by Mongol ruler Hulagu Khan in 1255. The Kurds, on the other hand, are largely tribal people who migrated to the plains from the surrounding mountains in large numbers beginning from the early 19th century. There are also a number of ethnic Persians, including Baha'is, in the main towns, and some families of Aramaic or Assyrian-speaking Jews who have remained in Urmia. Orthodox Armenians also form a significant community. Now, the lush and picturesque Urmia region, and here are some pictures of how lush and picturesque it is, to give you an idea, is bound to the east by Lake Urmi, as you can see in the satellite image, and to the west by the high mountains which form the border with Turkey and from which flow the rivers which define many of its districts. Low ranges of hills also serve to divide the region into three main sectors. So in the central part you have the Urmia Plain, flanked by the Salamas Plain in the north, watered by the Zola Chai, as well as the Suldus Plain to the south, traversed by the Gardel River. And here you can see, this is the Urmia Plain, and I'm going to go in a little bit more detail. So the Urmia Plain in turn is divided into three main districts. These are the Shahar Chai, or Narat and Dita, the city river, the Nazlu Chai, Narat Nazir, and Barandus Chai, or Narat Barandus, as well as the tiny lakeside districts of Anzal in the northeast corner and Dol in the southeast corner. Another district is the Dashtebil Plateau, watered by the Qasembul River, wedged in between the Urmia and Suldus plains. Additionally, the Shahar Chai district is divided into even smaller sub-districts, including the city of Urmia at the center, as well as lands irrigated by its main tributaries, the Rozeh Chai in the east and the Bakishlu Chai in the west. Over the mountains, between the plains and the Turkish-Iranian border, and at the headwaters of the various river systems, lie the districts of Chara, Somay, Bradost, Targyawar, Dasht, Margyawar, and Ushnu. A century ago, and this will just give you an idea, so on the other side of the border you have Hakkari, Botan, and northern Iraq, so it's all this one continuous area. Now, a century ago, this region was dotted with Christian villages populated by ethnic Assyrians and Armenians. Some 220 Christian settlements with up to 140 churches were mentioned here in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and a further 40 are traditionally held to have been Assyrian settlements abandoned at an earlier period. Now, the number decreased gradually to 81 villages in 1947, 66 in 1966, and 55 in 1970, whilst today no more than 36 rural settlements are still inhabited by a small number of mostly elderly Assyrians. A larger number of them still retain property and houses in their ancestral villages while living in the city. Only the villages of Marserges, Qizil Ashiq, Mushawa, Satluwe, Tazak and Toira, and Takya are exclusively owned and inhabited by Assyrians. So that's 1, 2. I think someone saw someone they know. So only about 6 villages are still completely owned by Assyrians. So they haven't sold out. So outlying Assyrian communities also existed as far north as the town of Khoy and as far south as Silve in the Lahijan district of Piranshah County, and as far east as the port of Ajabshir on the east coast of Lake Urmia, and the inland towns of Tabriz and Maragha in East Azerbaijan province. Now, only the municipalities of Dol and Dashtebil had no Christian Assyrian settlements ever historically attested. Additionally, there were formerly large communities of Aramaic-speaking Jews residing in the towns of Urmi, Salamas, Tazeshar, Sekhani, Oshnaviyeh, Naqadeh, and Mahabat. However, they mass migrated to Israel in the 1950s, and now only a few families remain. There are also isolated references to Jacobite or Syriac Orthodox, West Assyrian, communities in the Saranas district and Mahabad in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. However, no trace of them remains today. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Assyrian presence in the Urmi region in ancient times. Now, it's attested quite early on. The oldest human settlements in the Urmi area have been discovered to date, and they come from the second half of the 6th millennium BC. Okay, so roughly 6,000 years or 8,000 years ago. With the earliest evidence of winemaking, and here you can see the earliest wine jar ever found in the world, discovered at the site of Haji Firuz Tepe in Suldus. So, in Suldus Shatiana like Nadile. Also, from the 6th millennium BC is the important site of Tepe Hasanlu, which is also in Suldus, and which is the largest in the Gada River Valley and dominates the Suldus plain. Finds from Tepe Hasanlu and also the site of Dinha Tepe, yes, it's called Dinha, it's an Assyrian name, display changes in local pottery forms in the material culture between 1600 and 1450 BC and around 1250 BC, which archaeologists have linked to cultural contact between them and the Assyrian heartland, and especially the expansion of the Middle Assyrian Kingdom as it conducted military campaigns into the Zagros Mountains. Indeed, at Tepe Hasanlu, the continued presence in significant quantities of Assyrian goods or copies of them can only mean continued cultural contact with ancient Assyria. To illustrate this, the fact that iron appears in bulk there around the same time that Assyria seized control of the metal trade in Anatolia could only mean that the site had close ties to Mesopotamia and North Syria. So there were Assyrians living in this area, or at least trading in this area, or part of this area's cultural life very, very early on. So Tepe Hasanlu was destroyed in 1050 and again in the 9th century BC when it was sacked in 800 BC, probably by the Urartian civilization. Nearby Oshnavie, in its turn, is also identified with the ancient city of Sugunia, which was attacked by Assyrian Emperor Shalmaneser III in the mid-9th century. From the same period are the stelae of Mawana and Keleshin, which were discovered in the mountains of Iran's border with Turkey and Iraq. Now these stones, one of which is in the Urmia Museum today, are inscribed in bilingual texts in Akkadian and Urartian, marking the ancient boundary between the Assyrian Empire and the kingdom of Urartu in around 800 BC. The text of the Keleshin stele describes the Urartian capture of the important town of Musasir, which has been identified by Iranian archaeological authorities as the early 1st millennium BC site of Rabat Tepe near the town of Sardash to the south, where numerous ancient Assyrian artifacts and inscriptions have been found. In 716 BC, the Assyrian emperor Sargon II reconquered the Urmi